Morning. We are starting the session on spring interview questions. These are the questions. Actually, I had written on the slides. I have make a PPT on this PowerPoint presentation for this. For every interview question, actually I had used examples like a scenario. Actually, there are overall 25 questions is there. Sorry, overall 28 questions is there. Remaining it is like 22 questions are scenario based questions, and I will come up with the next video based on real-time scenario spring interview questions. After completing this, I'm able to go for Spring Boot interview questions on Spring. After completing Spring Boot, Spring Security. After completing Spring Security, we can able to go for Hibernate, and after Hibernate, we can go for microservices. Microservices after going for asynchronous communication using Kafka. Kafka interview questions also we can able to use, see it in PPT using PPT. And that's it from the back end. Now I'm starting the Spring interview questions. Yeah, my first question is what is Spring Framework? Yeah, it is open source Java framework for developing enterprise and web applications. It follows the principles of inversion of control dependency injection (AOP). And welcoming to the features of Spring Framework, IOC dependency injection, AOP, model view controller, security, transaction management, data access, and testing. It's just a theoretical question. What is dependency injection? Dependency injection provides responsibility for creating objects, and it is shifted from application code to Spring container. Types of dependency injection: constructor, setter, field injection. Spring provides loose coupling techniques. Constructor injection is used in constructor, and the dependency is injected to dependent classes using a certain method and get be derived and used to use any injected dependency within the class. In the field, actually field injection dependencies are injected directly into the fields of class. Most probably, constructor injection is often considered as a better approach, that all required dependencies are provided when object is created. Coming to IOC. IOC framework, it manages overall execution of our program and allowing code to focus on specific tasks. We can able to achieve IOC by dependency injection. Benefits of lifecycle is managed by Spring and loose coupling between classes, better testability. In this IOC objects is nothing but a beans, which is obtained by XML, Java code or Java annotations. List. What are the list modules in Spring Framework? Spring Framework provides a wide range of modules to address different concerns in development process. Modules are grouped into core container, data access, web, AOP, instrumentation, test. Instrumentation after the test. Spring AOP provides the support for AOP in Spring applications. Aspect-oriented programming. Spring aspects. Spring Greens, Spring Groovy, Spring Context, Spring Context Indexer, Spring Context support Spring Code, Spring Expression, Spring JDBC, JMS. These are all the these are all the modules in Spring Framework. Here's a Spring Web. In the Spring Web, we are using the REST APIs. And Spring Web, like WebSockets, it is used in chatting applications. We can able to use WebSockets and JDBC, and like database connectivity, JMS messaging service, and Spring object relational mapping, nothing but using Hibernate, and Spring Test using testing frameworks such as Mockito as well as JUnit. We can able to use here. Like that, all the modules are present in Spring Framework. These are all the bean scopes in framework. Bean scope singleton prototype request session application WebSocket. While coming to singleton, it is the default scope in Spring and one instance per Spring IOC container which is shared across entire application. While coming to prototype, a new instance is created for each request or injection, and new instance of the bean is created each time that is requested. While coming to request, a new instance for each HTTP requests and is created and exists only for a duration of a single HTTP request session. A new instance for each HTTP session and a new instance of bean is created for each HTTP session, and a bean is available throughout the entire session. While coming to application, a single instance for entire web application. While coming to WebSockets, a new instance for each WebSocket connection. This will be helpful in real-time chatting applications. Yeah, see, which dependency injection would you suggest? Constructor injection or setter injection? Construction is recommended in production stage, and it has some advantages like immutability, dependency enforcement, testable testing facilities, dependency management. It can able to manage dependencies. Here is the Spring Bean life cycle. These are the life cycle of Spring Bean life cycle. First step it is instantiation. After instantiation, populate properties, and while coming to properties, after the bean name aware, it like a set bean name, set bean factory. After all this pre-initialization bean post processes, after this initialization bean, after property set methods, custom int methods after post initialization, bean post processes, and then the bean is ready to use. After the bean, when we are using the bean, at the end we can able to destroy the bean. Is the bean life cycle. Almost 10 steps are available here. For every bean life cycle in Spring, same this is the process. First instantiation, after the last step it is destruction, destroy the bean. What is auto wiring and types of auto wiring? Auto wiring is a feature to allow us to automatically inject dependencies into our Spring beans. Well, coming to types of auto wiring, no by type binary constructor. Auto wiring reduces for manual configuration. It also saves time which was spent earlier in setting up dependencies. Consistent dependency injection reduces chance of configuration errors. Developers can focus on business logic. Between tight coupling and loose coupling. Tight coupling, which is nothing but microservice monolithic architecture, we can able to use in tight coupling, and while coming to microservices, we can able to use on loose coupling. This is the example, prime example. While coming to tight coupling, components have higher dependency on each other. If the changes in one component may require changes in coupled components, increases complexity and reduces flexibility. Testing individual components in isolation is challenging. Here, while coming to loose coupling, components are independent and have little information on each other. Changes in one component have no impact on other. Promotes reusability, flexibility, and maintainability. Dependency injection in Spring promotes loose coupling. Components can be tested independently. Nothing but unit testing. What is the difference between singleton and prototype bean? Singleton only one instance is created and shared throughout the application. Creating during application context initialization and lasts throughout application. It is stateful and stateless beans are used in this components used global in application. It consumes less memory as only one instance is maintained. Here scope is broader. Well, coming to prototype, a new instance is created whenever the request from Spring container in this client code manages life cycle. Stateful beans are used where a unique instance is needed for each interaction. User specified data is present. It actually consumes more memory because there are multiple instances are exist. Here scope is limited. Actually, here scope is broader and scope is limited. What is default scope of Spring Bean? Is it synchronized? In Spring Framework, default scope is for Bean is singleton. By default, Spring Beans with singleton scope are not synchronized. If we need to ensure thread safety for singleton bean, we can use the techniques such as synchronized methods. If it happens in prototype on a request scope, synchronized consents may not be relevant as each client gets its own instances of. Finally, what I'm saying is in singleton there is no thread safety, but while coming to prototype and request scope, the synchronization is present. Different types of bean injections. In Spring, we can inject bean using various methods: constructor injection, setter injection, field or property based. While coming to constructor injection, it is best for required dependencies. What are the dependencies we can able to use? We can use using constructor injection. While coming to setter injection, it is suitable for optional dependencies. Optional dependencies means whenever we can able is there any option, then only we can able to use setter injection. While coming to field injection, quick and concise, but not recommended for production. It is not useful for production. So Spring team has said that like use setter construction or setter injection. One of them. Why do we use application.properties file or YAML file? Application.properties file is used for externalized configuration, allowing developers to configure various properties without modifying source code. Spring Boot automatically loads and applies properties defined in this file during application startup. Spring Boot provides default values and developers can override them by specifying properties in application.properties. Difference between XML versus annotation Spring configuration. XML clear separation of configuration from business logic and benefits for large and complex applications and configuration details stored in external XML files. Annotation based configuration, more concise approach and preferred for smaller projects. And configuration expressed directly in code using annotation and reduces the reliance on separate configuration files. Code reusability is better in annotation configuration. Yeah, well, what is the role of Spring Boot annotation in Spring Boot? Spring Boot annotation is the combination of below configuration enable auto configuration component scan. While coming to configuration, it indicates that class has methods annotated with bean which Spring can use to create and manage objects during program execution. While coming to enable auto configuration, it indicates Spring Boot should automatically configure and add beans based on class path, existing beans, and property settings. While coming to components, can it manage controller services in our application? What is the purpose of qualifier annotation? If only one bean of a particular type exists, Spring will automatically wire it without requiring qualifier. If we don't specify qualifier and multiple beans are available, Spring will throw a no unique bean definition exception. Why do we use component scan annotation? Component scan is used in Spring application to enable component scanning. This is the real-time example, like when we are using component scan. This annotation tells Spring to scan specified packages for Spring components. These components will be registered as beans in Spring context. This is the important question, like difference between bean factory versus application context. Actually, it is available in this package, beans package. It is available in context package. Actually, it is useful for standalone applications too, but it is application context is useful for web application as well as distributed applications. It supports singleton and prototype bean scopes, bean factory. It supports all types of bean scopes such as singleton. Okay, 6 scopes are available. All 6 scopes supports by application context. It does not support annotation. It supports annotation based auto wiring. It has no built-in support for internationalization. It has built-in support for internationalization. The application context can be used in different languages. It implements lazy initialization. It implements eager initialization and loading and creating all beans at application startup. Yeah, welcoming to Spring Batch. So, yeah, it's a framework for writing batch applications using Java, and Spring Batch application refer to automated offline systems, basically used for bulk processing data. Features of Spring Batch: it support flexibility, reusability, readability, scalability, and maintainability. While coming to architecture, first application goes to batch core. Batch core goes to batch infrastructure. After batch infrastructure comes to batch core. Batch core comes to application. Spring batch core. Job launcher is initiated. This is the flow architecture, like architecture nothing but workflow in the Spring batch. Job launcher is initiated from job scheduler. Job launcher executes the job. Step is executed from job. Step fetches input data by using item reader. Step process input data by using item processor. Step outputs processed data by using item writer. Here we can able to use key concepts of what are the key concepts of Spring Batch. Spring Batch like job, restartable, step, readers and writers, item processor, job repository, job launcher, job instance, and chunk data. In the Spring Batch, these are all we are using here. While coming to use cases of Spring Batch, use cases means like where we are using the Spring Batch. Imagine a simple batch repeat. It's like initialization. It is like automatic retrieval after failure. Here also we can able to use a Spring Batch. Chunk processing. Most probably we can able to use like see wherever here using like a job restartable, step reader and writer, item processor, job repository, job launcher, job instance, chunk. Here we can able to use same use cases also, whatever we are using. A copy file to file in a batch, parallel batch processing, manual restart after failure, partial processing, scheduled processing, pause and resume job execution. These are the use cases we are using Spring Batch. Explain propagation levels in Spring transaction. While coming to propagation level, mm, there are 7 types. Required default, requires new, supports new, not support. Actually, Spring transaction means at the rate transactional annotation we can able to use here. Like in the at the rate transaction we can able to use a propagation, like what we need to give the steps, like requires new, supports never, not support, mandatory, never. These are the conditions based on the like for the database for connecting transaction is nothing but to connect to database. Whatever the entities are present in database, it will show using transaction. But here are the conditions. Some of the condition propagation levels requirements by default all will show like is there any new database new like now supported. These are all the propagation levels in transactional. A list all Spring annotation. Nearly 60 annotations are present here based on their features like Spring, like core Spring annotations, Spring Boot annotation, dependency injection annotation, transaction management annotations, AOP and aspect-oriented programming annotations, Spring MVC annotations, validation annotations, Spring scheduling annotations, security annotation, data annotation, cloud annotation, batch annotation, testing annotation, Spring Catchy annotation. These are all overall 60 annotations are present based on their framework. Request parameter and path variable in Spring MVC. Request parameter is for query parameters. Path variable is for parameters. Request parameter is it's an optional with a default value, and parameters are path variable parameters are mandatory. It is appended to URL request param and while path variable URL structure. Use the rate request param for filter search pagination request param, but while coming to path variable you can use for resource identifier. Request mapping versus get mapping in a Spring MVC. Request mapping is general purpose annotation and can be used in multiple HTTP methods, and it can be used for more complex mapping. It can be used to define mappings for various HTTP methods and attributes and value or path and methods and params and headers and consumes produces. These are all the attributes. See last line. It is used to define mappings for various HTTP methods and attributes. Here are the attributes: value, method, params, headers, consumes, and produces. While coming to get mapping, it is used specifically for handling get requests. It is more self-explanatory. It is limited to just get requests only. And these are the attributes of get mapping: value, path, params, headers, produces, like media type formatters, which are present in header, here consumes and produces, here produces, media type formatters. Difference between component, repository, service controller. While coming to component, Spring Bean used for any class that does not fit for specific layer. Example, utility or helper class. Repository specialized in DAO layer handles in database operations and converts exceptions to data exception interfaces, extending JPA repository or custom DAOs. Service, it handles business logic and represents service layer. It often calls repositories and processes data by passing it to controller. While coming to controller, defines a controller layer in MVC pattern, maps HTTP requests to handle methods and manages web responses. Example, web controllers handling routes and rendering views. Moving to next question: how does transactional annotation works internally? Yeah, this is a process for transactional annotation works internally. A transaction is a sequence of operation executed as a single unit of work. We place transactional methods when we want transaction management. Spring proxy mechanism. Spring creates proxies around beans with transactional proxies allows in Spring to add behavior before or around method calls such as transaction management. While coming to transaction internal methods calls, if a transaction method calls another transaction method within the same class, proxy is bypassed and proxies manage transactions for external calls but do not affect internal calls within the same class and without proxy. Transaction management might not behave as expected for internal method calls. While coming to transactional behavior happening before server startup, after startup, new class is created called proxy. Proxy will add the transaction behavior. If Bean does not implement any interface, it will automatically choose inheritance instead of. This is the real-time interview question. This is the one line. If the Bean does not implement any interface, what will happen to transaction? It will choose inheritance instead. String and proxy beans that does not have an interface. Proxy, when it opens transaction calls. This is the scenario for the proxy. It opens transaction and calls the parent from the calls from the parent class, and it commit out rollback after completing the issue. And well, coming to last question, users. What are the uses of transactional in Spring? It is used to manage database transaction. It ensures some series of operations within the method are executed as a single unit of work. If any operation fails, all changes made during transactional rollback ensure data consistency. Welcoming to features, atomicity, isolation, propagation, rollback. Welcoming to uses of transactional, where we can useful means like transactional boundaries, rollback mechanism, isolation level, propagation behavior, read-only transaction timeout. These are the features we can able to use transactional. Yeah. Yeah, that's it from this session. Next, I will come with Spring Boot interview questions. After completing Spring Boot, I will go for Spring Security. After completing Spring Security, there is a real-time scenario questions, nearly 20 questions. Overall, Spring Boot, Spring Security, and after this, we can move to microservices and Kafka. Yeah, that's it from this session. Please subscribe to my channel and follow my channel. That's it.